What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Plenty to talk about today, obviously, as the season approaches. It's Thursday. Game day is next Saturday. We've got some week zero games. We'll talk about some of those coming up. We'll talk about some of the things that we know and that we don't know about this Razorback football team and the season ahead. Connor Goodson is going to join me also. This is your Arkansas 2025 football primer. The Crane Automotive Team has 16 locations across our state and is home to the Crane Commitment. You'll find Ford, Chevy, Buick, GMC, Hyundai, Kia, Volkswagen, and access to thousands of pre-owned vehicles. Vehicles for every lifestyle and every budget. Even if you're not in the market for a vehicle, the Crane Team Service Centers offer the latest in vehicle diagnostic technology and certified technicians to take care of your vehicle and get you back out on the road. Check them out at craneteam.com. Hog Sports Live is driven by the Crane Automotive Team.
There it is, that feeling of a big win. Yeah, that's you, enjoying your moment, because you just won big with the Crane Team. Your perfect vehicle at the perfect price. You got Crane Cash discounts and more than you ever dreamed for your trade. Sure feels good, doesn't it? With 16 different locations around the state and every vehicle backed by the Crane Commitment, we keep Arkansas moving. That's winning. That's the Crane Team. Visit craneteam.com.
Proud to have the Crane Automotive Team as a title sponsor this year. Thousands of vehicles. Go to craneteam.com. Check out the inventory. Keyshawn Blackstock moved to defensive tackle. That's the biggest news that came out of Sam Pittman Live yesterday. Yesterday was one of the few off days that we've actually had as far as no practice availability, no media availability, but Sam Pittman did do the first Sam Pittman Live show. And the only news that really came out of that, there's a lot of like regurgitated, that's just where we are right now. Like I regurgitate things like this is where we are waiting for this season to go. But Keyshawn Blackstock to defensive tackle to me was the only decision they could have made. Obviously you would have liked to have seen them get more defensive linemen out of the transfer portal. When that April 25th date hit and the portal closed, I was just like, sure would like to see one more defensive tackle on this roster, one more veteran. You need, in my opinion, the transfer portal age, you need 5 guys, 20-something years old. That's what you need at defensive tackle. And then the problem this year with the portal, and people can say stuff like, well, they shouldn't have got so many wide receivers. Well, they started getting wide receivers when, it turned out to be like, what's the best available? There just wasn't a lot of defensive linemen in the portal. And why is that? Why is it not what Arkansas maybe expected it to be? Well, I think the main reason is you have teams that might have otherwise let those players go because they couldn't pay them. They needed to pay players that are coming in now, pay recruits and stuff, and they would have just gone. Now they can afford to pay them because they have the revenue sharing and all that stuff. So I think that's why you saw one of the most important positions on the field, defensive tackle, defensive end. You just didn't see a whole lot of talent there. Arkansas was lucky to get David Oakey, who came from Abilene Christian, had like 63 tackles last year. But David Oakey has a knee injury, as we talked about the other day. When a coach says they're going to go in and maybe trim it a little bit, that's what Sam Pittman said. That usually means a meniscus, 4 to 6. Again, these guys are young. They're getting people working on them all the time. So he's going to miss at least a couple of games and could be more. So what do you do given the situation that you're in? Well, you've got a position battle at right guard between Kobe Branham and Keyshawn Blackstock. And I'll say this, about 4, 5, 6 practices in, it became pretty obvious that Kobe Branham was going to win that job. Now, why does it make sense to move some depth from the offensive line to the defensive line? Because they have depth. I mean, Blake Cherry, first of all, the freshman left guard who was here in the spring, he's the backup left guard now. He has moved all the way up to backup. They love him. They think he's going to be really – in fact, Fernando Carmona the other day said if he had another year of eligibility and was going to come back in 2026, he'd be worried about his job competing with Blake Cherry from the progress that he'll make in the next year. Is it ideal? No, but injuries aren't ideal. The other situation you have a battle at right tackle between Amarian Harris and Shaq McCroy. That's a very close battle. Amarian's got a little experience edge. But if something were to happen where you needed another guard, Amarian played guard and tackle last year. He started 13 games. So that's notable. And maybe it says something also about the strength of the offensive line because, Keyshawn Blackstock started 9 games. So is Keyshawn going to be just able to just slide over and make an impact at defensive tackle? We don't know that yet. He is 6'5", 320. He's a redshirt senior. He's been in a college weight room for a number of years. He's got to be pretty strong. Sometimes what separates a defensive lineman from an offensive lineman is just that fast twitch muscle fiber. I mean, that's what separates them generally. Maybe an offensive lineman could be more agile or brutish strength and stuff like that. But usually a defensive lineman, particularly defensive tackle, has that quick twitch. And that's kind of what separates. So does he have that? I don't know. I'm expecting him to probably be the 4th defensive tackle right now with David Oki out. Is this a permanent move also? It may not be a permanent move. You get David Oki back. But I do think that he can help them just given his size. I mean, it's not nothing that he started 9 games in the SEC last year, So he has experience. He's veteran. He's big. He's strong. That should play well. I don't know that there was another option for them that was better than that, than to move him. And I asked Sam Pittman about that the other day. Does David Oki injury make you feel a little thin? Amen, thin. Hell yeah, it does. That's what he said. And then he said, we're, have to maybe look at some options and ask themselves the question, they like the freshmen, but ask themselves a serious question. Are they ready to help us? And the answer is probably not. You probably don't want to have to rely on these 3 freshmen. While I like the way they look, they're going against grown men in the SEC. So it makes sense to put another grown man on the other side of the ball. Nothing's ideal here. And yes, it would have been nice to see them take care of defensive tackle in the transfer portal season, but it didn't happen. Defensive tackles go at a premium. They'll have to do it next year. I mean, they'll have to put in some money on defensive tackle, no question. Okay, let's hear what Bobby Petrino had to say. This is about wide receiver because that's another really interesting position group. We don't really know. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me just how things have trended, just how the discussion has gone, if we don't see Omega Blake at outside, Monte Harrison at outside, and C.J. Brown inside. Could also be Raylan Sharp. We've just heard a lot about C.J. Brown. He's probably one of the most slept-on players. We'll see. He's definitely being slept on. But for a guy that played last year as a true freshman, he returns at wide receiver, which is not something that hardly anybody else can say on the team. Zach Taylor can say it. He and Monte Harrison can say it. So he really understands the offense. That's a big part of a lot of that. And, he was the fastest player on the team in terms of peak miles per hour speed. Monte Harrison is a guy that just keeps showing up. As much as we want to say, he's 30 years old, he's been playing Major League Baseball, all this kind of stuff. He keeps showing up scrimmage after scrimmage after scrimmage. You have to recognize that. You can't just completely ignore that. So starting out, I think we could possibly see both of those guys. I also think probably Raylan Sharp, but CJ could play inside or outside. So let's see what Petrino has to say about it. I mean, who are the go-to receivers? You got so many options out there. Have you started paring things down a little bit more?
It'll probably this week, start working itself out a little bit more. So you go into some situation work this week and game plan stuff, and still go ones versus ones, so you get that competition. But Monte still had another big game, had our big day out there. Made a lot of catches, did a good job of running routes, ran after the catch, so I was happy with him. CJ had a big touchdown for us and run after the catch, which was great to see, something that we're really looking for. Jay Brown had a big day. I thought he felt good about it. He looked fast out there, and the thing about him is he is fast, so as long as he knows exactly what he's doing, he's going to play like that, and that was what was good to see, is that he wasn't hesitating. He really looked like he knew the offense better and made plays. Megan Blake had kind of a tough day as far as getting balls thrown to him. It just didn't work out when you called the play for him. The progression took us somewhere else, and I'd have liked to seen him get more opportunities to catch the ball, but he just didn't get them done.
Last time we talked with you, you said C.J. Brown knows the offense better than anybody, which is high praise for a sophomore. Just what did you see from him this offseason to kind of get that type of confidence from you?
Well, really, it was last fall. He started, getting involved in the offense late in the season. He could run in there and add depth at two different positions. Had a nice bowl game. I thought he did a really good job in the preparation for the bowl game. Right now he's playing two different positions for us, and his skill set his quickness is really good inside, but he also has the really nice speed and routes that he can hit on the outside, and the quarterbacks feel good about where he's going to be on the deep throws. So he's going to have a good year for us. I'm happy.
You brought up Monte Harrison, made a lot of plays again. When you brought him in, as a guy that hadn't played in 10 years and was a lot older than all the other guys, did you realistically think, like, hey, this is a guy that can really actually help us on Saturdays, or has he maybe exceeded those expectations?
Yeah, I really didn't know. Didn't know a whole lot about him. Did go back and watch his high school tape, and very, very impressive, the different things he did on high school tape. He was a good punt returner in high school. He lined up at quarterback a little bit in high school, and all those things were exciting. And then, I think when you this summer, when you put up on the board all our players and their size, strength, speed, jumping ability, he just pops off the board going, man, this is unbelievable how talented this young man is, or old man is. I don't know what you call him, young or old. Still young to me, I can tell you that. But he is unbelievably talented, and now he understands football. He's been away from it for a long time. So he's done a great job for us so far. We got to keep it going.
So from what Petrino said there, something that really intrigues me is the rise, I guess, of Jaylen Brown. He's a guy that we haven't talked about a whole lot, but he keeps bringing up, Petrino specifically keeps bringing up Jaylen Brown. And we know maybe he doesn't have the same peak miles per hour speed as C.J. Brown did, but from what everybody says, he's the fastest guy on the team. This is a guy that was a top 100 prospect coming out of high school when he enrolled at LSU out of Miami, then transferred to Florida State, ran into an off-field issue that we talked about, obviously, and now is in Fayetteville. So can he make an impact? I mean, there's going to be people on this football team who shock you, who surprise you, not only me, but also you. Like, we're both going to be surprised. And I've been going to practices and stuff. And that's going to cut both ways. There'll be guys that we think, hey, this guy could be a real player for him, and just not going to show up. And there's big guys that we're just not talking about. It happens every single year. That's one of the things that make it so exciting, following things. I'm actually a little surprised that Pittman even said the thing about Keyshawn Blackstock, because it would have been, I guess, more expected to go out there and you're watching the game and you're like, who's 56? Is that Blackstock on defense? Wouldn't have been surprising to see it like that. It wouldn't have been surprising to be surprised like that. I want to tell you about our friends over at Blakeman's. Blakeman's Fine Jewelry is proud to be the official jeweler of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Thrilled to support the team, and that includes providing beautifully crafted pieces for the U of A homecoming court. Built on tradition since 1987, Blakeman's has been Northwest Arkansas's trusted destination for exceptional jewelry and personalized service. Visit them at their brand new location, 3202 Pinnacle Hills Parkway, Rogers, Arkansas, 72758. Blakeman's Fine Jewelry, where Arkansas gets engaged. And also a big shout out to Ben Blakeman, who also just got engaged and is getting married this weekend. Congratulations. And everybody at Blakeman's. I mean, the new store is outrageously amazing. It's big. It's very impressive. So proud to have Blakeman's as a sponsor. Know a lot of people over there, as we do with a lot of the people that sponsor this show. People that I know, I'm familiar with, and Blakeman's is right up that alley. Predictions time. Yeah. Time for some predictions. So I have said a number of times that Arkansas is going 4-8 or 8-4, and I still believe that. It's just when I'm making these predictions, I can't go in and just be like 4-8 because I think that equally they could go 8-4, and then I'm dramatically wrong. So just keep that in mind. But I do have some fun twists here and there. You can read this story on HawgSports.com. Me, Danny, Connor, and Kevin Bohannon all made our predictions game by game, and we had some fun with it. The opener, I've got Arkansas 52-10. This is a team that went 6-6 last year. They beat UAPB pretty handily in the same conference in the SWAC. So I'm not expecting them just to 70-0 those guys like Arkansas did last year in War Memorial. But I do think a convincing win should be expected. And Arkansas has struggled sometimes against teams that they should just dominate. I mean, Kent State was like 24-0 or something. They milked the ball, took the clock all the way down. I think Arkansas's got a better team than that team that faced Kent State. But I do like Arkansas 52-10 in the opener. Then we'll go to Arkansas State and Little Rock. Something that surprised me a little bit about Arkansas State when I go down their roster. Arkansas State of old is littered with, Arkansas high school players who were snubbed by the University of Arkansas. They got a chip on their shoulder. And we hear all this stuff about this is Arkansas State Super Bowl. Well, maybe it is to their fans and their administration, but I'm not so sure it is to the roster. There are only 11 Arkansans on this football roster. Also, there's Zuri Madison, who's a former Razorback, so I'm sure it means something to him. But there are only 11 Arkansans, and I'm not even sure, are all of them even playing? Does it mean that much to this roster? It's a different era. It's the portal age, so it's a different era. I've got Arkansas 45-21 in Little Rock. I'm also banking on maybe the toilets not working this year. Last year it was the toilet. It's always something. Last year it was people going to the bathroom on top of, previous bathroom users, and no ability to wash your hands. That's what we had last year. The year before, it's no water. So there's a lot of predictions you can make about War Memorial, and it's just how it is. Just how it is. I guess it's part of the charm now, just about how War Memorial is. But you know what? The golf course is going to be rocking. It'll be a lot of fun. 4:00 game at Ole Miss. So I've said this before, Arkansas guys, if you don't have this circled on your calendar, if you don't show up to that game after the way they embarrassed you last year in Fayetteville and kept throwing the ball in the fourth quarter, just complete and utter disrespect, what are you going to do about it kind of attitude. And then somebody had tweeted that Arkansas was Ole Miss's farm team after Ole Miss just took 3 of their players. And Lane Kiffin brazenly retweeted that. And then he deleted it because he realized, this is a lot, I think, and deleted that. So if you don't show up in Oxford with some fight and anger, you have no soul. Arkansas football is soulless if they don't show up to that game. Now, I'm not saying they have to win, but they better show up. I've got Arkansas winning it, 38-31. Surprise, they played well there the last couple of years. They just haven't pulled out a win. I've got them winning it. The next week, you're at Memphis, which is ridiculous that they're playing at Memphis. So this is one of those games where I could see, this is a scenario here, so everything has to fit together. So they go to Oxford and they win, and then they do the most Arkansas thing ever, and they go to Memphis and act like the scores and the points from that game carry over in some kind of way, and they get hit in the mouth by a Memphis team that views this as a huge game for their program, a program that is chomping at the bit to make the college football playoff, and they lose 31-27. Isn't that the most Arkansas thing ever? Go to Oxford and win and then come back and lose against Memphis. So those keeping track, I've got Arkansas at 3-1, 1-0 in the SEC right now. Notre Dame in Fayetteville. I feel like, we're going to Notre Dame's going to find out if CJ Carr is the right guy for them pretty quick. They've got Baylor, they've got Miami, Texas A&M, and Purdue all before Arkansas. They gave up 24 points just once last season, held 10 opponents to 14 points or less. And Arkansas, I just don't think that has that kind of defense. Notre Dame's got a really good defense. I got Notre Dame 34-21. That puts Arkansas at 3-2, 1-0 SEC. Then we're going bye week, and then it's a trip to Knoxville. By the way, I've booked all these trips. I've booked everything except for Memphis right now. I finished everything up yesterday as far as hotels, flights. So I've got the trip to Oxford. Got a hotel scheduled for that. I'm obviously going to drive that one. Memphis, I'm still in limbo about, just because the press box has moved to the other side of the field. If you sit in the second row, you can't see the bottom third of the field. So I'm not going to the game if I can't see the bottom of the field. So the stadium's just still under construction. So that one's iffy. I've booked to Knoxville. I've booked to Baton Rouge. I've booked to Austin. Maybe I'm going to torture myself. Maybe it'll be fun. Who knows? But in Knoxville, I've got Arkansas 28-21. They're going to have a new quarterback. I don't know that they've named their quarterback yet. I think, no, that they have. It'll be Joey Aguilar. So they've named him. And so, I think it's important to note about what Josh Heupel has done. The last 3 years under Josh Heupel have been better than any 3-year period in Tennessee program history. Well, not history, but since Peyton Manning, T. Martin were in the mid to late 90s with that program. It's been the best 3-year stretch since then. And he's done it with 3 different quarterbacks: Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, and Nico Iamaleava. And now we'll have Joey Aguilar. So it's been a different quarterback every year, and they've had success every year. Won 10, where'd they win? Yeah, 10, 9, and 11. Obviously, Arkansas got them last year. I've got Tennessee winning 28-21 in Knoxville. That's 3-3, 1-1 SEC. Texas A&M. Again, I did the Memphis thing because it just feels very Arkansas for something like that to happen. So does complaining about playing, and I'm there too because I've complained about it, complaining about playing this game at Texas A&M, or excuse me, at Arlington for year after year after year, disaster after disaster. And it's been 9 years since they've come to Fayetteville, and they're finally here, and I've got them losing the game because I don't know. I felt like Auburn in 2021, Arkansas played those 2 tough road games. They played Georgia and Ole Miss, lost a close one against Ole Miss, and almost felt like when Auburn came to town, they played Auburn like Auburn owed them something, and they didn't, and they lost 38-22 in that one. And I kind of feel like maybe something like that would happen in this one. Texas A&M 28, Arkansas 24. I got Arkansas at 3-4, 1-2 in the SEC. Auburn in Fayetteville. I like Arkansas in a close one in this one. Jackson Arnold was a top 10 recruit in the class of 2023, and so did his time at Oklahoma reveal his true colors, which, you look at his stats, they weren't bad throughout the time that he was playing, but you look at some of the bigger games, there were some struggles. So did he show his true colors, which, might be kind of gray, so fine, but no pop. And Hugh Freeze also said he might play 3 quarterbacks in week 1 against Baylor. Why? Why would you do that? Arkansas 4-4, 2-2 in the SEC. 4-4, 2-2 in the SEC. I got them winning 31-30 over Auburn in Fayetteville. Mississippi State. So I think Mississippi State will be better, but basically not good enough. The last time they came here, they beat Arkansas 7-3. Arkansas's only score came when Jalen Braxton intercepted the ball, and Arkansas couldn't move it, of course, and they kicked a field goal and won. Just one of the most disappointing home performances in program history. That was a terrible Mississippi State team. Offensively, it was one of the worst performances ever. I think there'll be a lot more points. Got Arkansas 49-31 in this one. Arkansas couldn't stop them from putting up a lot of points last year. I think Mississippi State will be improved by a few games, but I've got Arkansas 5-4, 3-2 in the SEC at this point. At LSU for an 11 o'clock game. LSU coming off of Bama week, so maybe a little bit of a letdown in this one. I think there's a possibility that things could go 2 ways for LSU, just kind of like I think for Arkansas, but, a bad start to the season, yada, yada. Brian Kelly could be on the hot seat. I think that you maybe catch LSU in a letdown. Maybe this is one that they surprise you. I've seen Arkansas win in Baton Rouge before. I think it was either not always at night, but it was at night by the end. They used to play at 2:30 or 1:30 or something. But this one's an 11 or 12 o'clock kickoff. I've got Arkansas 31-27. Surprise, Arkansas 6-4, 4-2 in the SEC. Well, after after a tough little stretch before the Auburn game, talk radio is unbearable. Somehow I've got them beating LSU. Next up, Texas at Texas. I just don't see any way. I mean, they've got a media darling in Arch Manning. Texas is going to be playing for the college football playoff and, national championship hopes. I've got Texas beating Arkansas 42-21. That brings them to 6-5, 4-3 in the SEC. And then round it all out with Missouri. And you guys know where I'm going here. It's in Fayetteville. Missouri is 12-4 against the Razorbacks. It's an embarrassing record against that program. I've got Arkansas losing because I'm not going to predict them to win until I see them just actually, maybe win a couple of games against them. Like they won one a few years ago, but they just keep losing to Missouri. I've got Missouri 42, Arkansas 35. That brings them to 6-6, 4-4 in the SEC. That was an important game because it's an opportunity to increase your winning 7 games is a lot different than winning 6 when it comes to bowl selection. So it would be an important game in that regard. But that's where I've got it. Honestly, as I've said, I think, depending on how the season starts, they could go 4-8 or 8-4. And that's kind of what I believe. But just for the purposes of making a prediction and not wanting to be too far off either way, I went 6-6 and 4-4. Danny West has them 7-5, 4-4. Connor Goodson has them 6-6 and 3-5. And Kevin Bohannon going big, 8-4, 5-3 in the SEC. We've got synopsises, breakdowns on all of those from me, Danny, Connor, and Kevin. All of us broke it down. So go check it out at HawgSports.com. Okay. We're going to go over to Connor Goodson now. Bringing Connor to the stage. But first, I would like to talk to you guys about our friends over at Ozarks Go. Ozarks Go back with us. I'm so happy to have Ozarks Go. This is the Ozarks Go hotline with Connor Goodson now. You can reach out to them at 479-684-4900. When you do that, you're going to talk to somebody local because it's a local company. You can also go to ozarksgo.net/hawg. That's HAWG, and check out our friends at Ozarks Go. Reliable, consistent, fast internet service at a great price. I say this all the time about those guys, and I've been with them for over 4 years now. Before they were ever a sponsor of the show, I have never one time unplugged my router and replugged it. Never had to reboot. When in doubt, reboot. Some services tell you to do that. I've never done that with Ozarks Go. They offer several tiers of internet service. I use their highest tier, and it just hums. I've never had an outage, so, I think that's the commercial. Like, I've never had an outage. Connor, how's it going?
It's going good. I'm honored to be the first one on the Ozarks Go hotline.
Yeah, even though you do not have Ozarks Go in your area.
I know I do not.
I can tell by your glitchy internet.
Yeah, I know. I would have that if I had that in my area. I'd have Ozarks Go for sure because it's a little annoying. But
yeah, it's annoying. Maybe one day. So Connor, you made your predictions. You've got Arkansas going. Would you have them 7-5?
6-6.
6-6 and 3-5 in the SEC. What led you to that decision? I know it's difficult.
Yeah, this is probably the toughest I've ever had to predict because I could see this team being anywhere from 4-8 to 8-4, like you said. I could see him. Heck, I could see him winning 9 games if everything fell, how it needs to with this team. They've got the talent. This team, you and Danny talked about it on last week's show. Just looking at this team in person during fall camp, this looks like an SEC team. This looks like a team that's built to compete in the SEC. It looks like one of those teams that you could actually do some damage. But the problem is, like you've said numerous times, everyone else has also improved. Everyone else has gotten bigger. Everyone else has gotten stronger, faster. And did Arkansas improve their depth in areas? Because attrition is going to happen, injuries are going to happen over the course of a season. Did they improve their depth in key areas? I think on one side of the line of scrimmage they did, and the other side is still a big question mark. And how is that all going to come together? Is Taylor Green going to take that second year jump like a lot of quarterbacks have under Bobby Petrino. You know, we think he will, but until we get in live game situations, it's hard to tell. So I could see this being a complete disaster going for winning only 4 games. And we all kind of know what that entails. But I could also see it being a great surprise season where Arkansas gets a lot of games they shouldn't. I could see Arkansas beating Ole Miss. I could see them beating Notre Dame. I could see them going to Knoxville, beating Tennessee, and being a media darling towards the end of the season to upset LSU and Texas. But a lot of things got to go their way. And so at the end of the day, this is Arkansas. This is Arkansas football. And from what we've learned over the last few seasons is that the little things are going to cost them in big moments. And I think that that's where I kind of landed with my prediction is that until I see that you can make the right decision in crunch time, whether to punt, go for it, kick a field goal, whether you can take care of the football consistently, whether you can protect the quarterback consistently, until I kind of see this team take that step and do those things and really nail down those little details, it's hard for me to go out on a limb and say that they can be 8-4 and knocking on the door of the playoff.
Yes.
Covered a lot in a little, sorry.
You're right on all of those things, on all those. And one of the other things, like Arkansas's secret weapon in this, it's not a secret weapon. It's Taylon Green, but like Taylon Green has to not just be like a good quarterback, like he has to be a difference maker, great quarterback. And I like for Arkansas to reach certain heights, you have to have a Darren McFadden type, a Matt Jones type, a guy that can take over a game and change the outcome, a guy that you just can't stop. And we have seen things from Taylon athletically that, you know, makes you think that he could possibly do that. If he has better protection and he's a threat to throw the ball, he's become a better passer, he understands the offense better, and he stays healthy, like he can be a real problem for teams. And a lot of teams out there don't have a guy like that. Like they have a game. Here's an example. One reason I think that they could possibly go to Baton Rouge and beat LSU. I think Garrett Nussmeier is a good quarterback. I just don't think that he's an exceptional quarterback. I think he's very overrated, actually. Like I don't see a first-round draft pick personally. I like the kid. I like that he stuck to LSU. I like his story. But I don't see like a difference maker at quarterback. But LSU has so many playmakers everywhere else, they don't necessarily have to have that. For Arkansas, Taylon Green has to be that. And there's a lot of teams out there that don't know what they have at quarterback. But that's also the case with teams that have had great quarterbacks. There's a lot of teams out there that are starting a guy that they think is the guy, and something will happen where he gets hurt or they're just not moving the ball, and they'll put the backup in. They're like, holy crap, this guy, you know. It's hard to figure out who your quarterback is because you don't ever hit them and stuff. So Taylon Green to me, and that's kind of the thing I think, Connor, for the whole roster. Do you have a stud corner? Is Larry Worth going to live up to everything that he's built up to be, from measurables to testing to, you know, all that more experience? Is Xavier Sori going to be fully healthy? He's got a bit of a hamstring. I think they're going to be solid at linebacker. Can you stay healthy on the defensive line? You know, is Quincy Rose a good player or is he a great player? Is Corey Robinson a good player or is he a great player? Because everybody's good. You know, do you have that go-to wide receiver? You look out there and you see a lot of big, good-looking athletes, but it's not enough just to be good. You have to have a few great players. And so the question is, does Arkansas have that?
Yeah, no, and that's what. Not only do they need to have the talent, but when you get into these games, mentality plays a lot into this too. Like, did they hit home runs on these guys as being when the chips are down, when you get punched in the mouth, when your back's on the mat? How do you get back up? Can these guys, do they have that mentality where they're not going to, just start pointing the finger, playing the blame game? Do they just go about their business and get back up and handle it? How do these guys handle high pressure situations on the road in the SEC when, on the third week of the season in Oxford? That's going to be a real test. How do you handle that adversity when it hits? And when you got guys that are injured and you're not playing a lot, but you're thrown into the fire there, you've got all of that is also just as important as having the talent on the field as being faster, stronger, and bigger. Because like you said, you need guys that can just step up and kind of transcend their position group and kind of emerge out of that and be superstar type players. And the mental aspect is just important from the physical aspect. And I think that we've seen over the years, especially in the Texas A&M game, the Missouri series, that mental aspect, for some reason, the guys, it just every season something happens in those games where it just feels like everyone in the building, not in maroon or not in black and gold, realizes what's about to happen. And it usually happens. There's going to be a key turnover. There's going to be something bad that happens. It follows the script every year. So you got guys that can change the script this season. Can they flip the script? And that's kind of what we've been talking about. And until we get into the games, we really won't know what we have. And that's what makes this thing so hard, is because you can go through fall camp, you can go through spring and see, and we can talk about it and write all the articles and diagnose everything. But until we line them up and put them out there, it's really tough to know what you got, especially this day and age with the transfer portal. Did they hit home runs and keep spots? That's to be determined.
Connor, one of the things that I noticed in your prediction, you got them beating the crap out of Memphis and playing pretty close against Notre Dame. Any other surprises that you've got? You got them beating Tennessee.
I do. I think that first of all, I think that they're going to lose that Week 3 game against Ole Miss. I think that they're going to come out with it's obviously a game that they have circled, a game that I hope that I'm 100% wrong on, but it just seems like that's a game where Arkansas plays really well, and then Ole Miss finds something towards the end, and they get a 50-50 bounce, maybe a 50-50 call with that home field advantage, and Lane just sneaks out again by the skin of his teeth with the win. And then I think that Arkansas comes back to Memphis the next week a little pissed off and takes it out on him a little bit. I could see that, and instead of I could also, on the flip side, I could also see how you predicted it, where Arkansas maybe squeaks out a win against Ole Miss and then pulls a UAB against a better version of that UAB team last year with Memphis and just overlooks them completely, thinking that last week's result had anything to do with this week, and they sleepwalk through it and get punched in the mouth. And
they'll go. If they go down 10-0 like they did to UAB last year, then they'll be in real trouble. And especially if they go into the fourth quarter, midway through, only up 30-27. So, here's the deal, though. Like with those two games, those are pivotal games. Ole Miss and Memphis, those are two good teams. Arkansas cannot go 0-2. If they go 0-2, this whole thing will crumble. Yep. Like, you cannot go 0-2 in those games, because next up is Notre Dame. And things happen, but I don't think anybody's predicting Arkansas to beat Notre Dame.
No,
they're just not. Any other crazy games that you got predicted? You got Arkansas just beat Mississippi State, losing to LSU, losing pretty similar score that I have to Texas, and then
losing a close one to Missouri again.
Of course,
it's one of those deals that until I see that Missouri doesn't have Arkansas's number, it's hard for me to pick that.
Connor, I'm already mad that they lost to Missouri. I'm already mad that they've lost to them. That's where my head is with that. I just expect it. Like,
whether you consider it a rivalry, whether you don't consider it a rivalry, or it irks me that it is that the series is the way it is. Because
that's an Alabama series. Arkansas should be 12-4 against, or 4-12 against Alabama, not Missouri.
Yeah. That there's no reason that Arkansas should have that many losses to Missouri, but here we are. And until I see that Arkansas can flip the script in that series, and I'm doing what I'm trained to do. What we've been trained over the last decade is that Missouri's probably going to beat Arkansas, and it's annoying. But no, I think that going back to the Notre Dame Ole Miss, I think that if you stumble in Oxford and you lose that game, it's not the end of the world. Ole Miss, there's a chance Ole Miss could be as good as they were last year. We don't know. There's a lot of question marks. I think that the consensus is that maybe they take a step back, but it's a road game in the SEC. I think that Notre Dame kind of offers a chance to kind of undo any missteps you have in that first part of the season, because it is an 11 a.m. kickoff. It is. There are some question marks with Notre Dame. Their defense is still stout. They return a lot there, but they have a new quarterback. Who knows how that can go with new quarterbacks? I think that I still don't see Arkansas maybe winning that game, but I think it could be a lot closer than what people think. And I think that Tennessee, as good as they were last year, I think that there's been a lot of, like, from what I've read and what I've seen, there's a lot of, concern from what they have this year. And I think that they could take a step back. And Arkansas has played well at Knoxville at times, and as good of an environment Neyland is, if Tennessee isn't as good as they are, then Neyland's not as good as it can be. So I think that Arkansas can maybe sneak in there and who knows, maybe get some magic and turn an upset and really kind of right the ship there. But it's pretty straightforward. I think that Arkansas, a lot of these games are 50-50. It's, if Arkansas does the little things right, it's as simple as this. If Arkansas does the little things right, takes care of the football, they probably win a handful of these 50-50 games. If they don't, then then it doesn't matter, because then it doesn't matter if they have the talent or not. If they can't do those little things right, it's not going to they shouldn't expect to win these games. And it's just that margin for error is always slim in the SEC, but especially nowadays, it seems it's slimmer than ever.
All right, Connor. Good stuff. Appreciate you joining us.
All right, awesome, Trey. Always fun to be on with you.
All right, everybody. That's Connor. Be sure to follow Connor at Connor Goodson. Does a lot of basketball stuff for us, obviously. That's kind of his main thing, but does a little bit of everything. So check Connor Goodson out at HawgSports.com and follow him at Connor Goodson, Connor. Well, I'd like to tell you about our friends over at Walker Brothers. Walker Brothers, and I mean friends, I've known these people for a long time. Like if you're looking for great menswear, great clothing, then these are the people to go to. They've got pretty much everything that you could possibly need. Brands like Peter Millar, Johnny O, Horn Legend, Divot Sportswear. They also, put the curly tail logo, the hog with the curly tail, and the Crazy Hog logos on all that gear. They just opened a brand new store in 3503 South 55th Street, Suite 101 in Rogers, Arkansas. Go check them out and visit their Fayetteville location. They've been at 577 Millsap Road, Suite 6 for a long, long time. We had a storm come by here the other day, and I saw somebody sent me a video of part of a branch falling down and knocking over the sign over in that shopping area. But that's where they are. They cleaned it up pretty quick. They also have the freshman experience, which I think is really cool. So like there's different like levels, like you pay a certain amount and they fit you up in a, sports jacket, some collared shirts, some loafers. There's different levels to that, the starter, the classic, the legend. I always say, my wife says this to me all the time, because I'm like, my t-shirt game isn't what it used to be. And she's like, well, you're 47. Maybe you shouldn't wear so many t-shirts. Maybe you should start dressing your age. And they certainly have a lot of that there. Of course, I love playing golf, and they've got a ton of clothes for golf. I mentioned the other day with Traylon Burks, he had the core shorts on that I had on, same color and everything. They have those from Viore, one of my favorite brands. I know a lot of you guys like those too. Go check out our friends at Walker Brothers, 3503 South 55th Street, Suite 101 in Rogers, and 577 Millsap Road, Suite 6 in Fayetteville. Where do we go? Where do we go? Questions? Let's answer some questions. How about that? Okay. Flint says, 55 months, 351 posts. Could we see a McCroy as a tight end or a fullback in goal line packages? Maybe when he's like a senior and they're trying to win awards for him. Because if he ever gets to senior year, I just think that he'll be gone before he's a senior. I have really high hopes for Shaq McCroy before his career is over. It's an interesting battle over at right tackle. Bobby Petrino said the other day that he's, kind of hit a bit of a wall in terms of, adjusting to the heat. And what I think he was saying was like the mental side of things. When it gets hot and you're tired, are you still as sharp mentally as you were at the start of the game? And you start making mistakes, false starts, holding, just messing up. Those are the kinds of things I think that's probably holding Shaq back a little bit. But I really think you don't rotate offensive linemen very much, which I think is one reason it makes sense to move Blackstock, because they can say all they want about rotating and all this kind of stuff. But at right tackle, it actually makes a little sense, especially early on in the season, to see what Shaq has. because he has so much potential. TJ Football 14 says, thoughts on moving Blackshot to defensive tackle. I think we covered that pretty good, TJ. I hope you read everything or listened to everything that I said on that. Junkyard Hog has been with us 197 months, 67,584 posts, and one of the best usernames on the internet. Same question from last week. 2 years ago, maybe 30-ish months ago, a lot of us folks had a great outlook for our season. You and Pate were in that group, as was I. Was that the worst backlash you can remember from the fan base? 2 years ago, yeah, I mean, nobody expects you to return your starting quarterback off a team that underperformed the year before. You know, they lost was that the year they lost to Liberty? Was that the year or was it the next year? I'm getting my years confused. But, you know, Arkansas had won 9 games. Then they won 7 games. You know, had some disappointments. And then that next year they went 4-8. And you've got KJ who shows up fat. Rocket shows up fat. You know, just out of shape and overweight at 2 key positions. And Rocket was hurt all season long. KJ just was not the same quarterback. I think it says a lot that you fire your strength and conditioning coach basically on the tarmac right after the season ends. So, yeah, I was disappointed, obviously. I'd been disappointed before, you know, but that was a season that was just totally unacceptable. And I felt based off that season that Sam Pittman needed to have a big season the next year. And didn't really. I mean, 6-6 is not a job-saving type of season, but it is now. It is in an era where all these teams are trying to figure out how to save, you know, $20.5 million off the budget. You end up firing a bunch of people. You know, I'm going to say this, like Arkansas has come out with like, you know, the 3-minute rule so they don't get fined. Like 3 minutes after a game, they beat Notre Dame or something, you got to wait 3 minutes and then you can storm the field. I think that's fine, especially when you consider, you know, you had to pay $250,000 last year to Tennessee, and then in the offseason you're firing a bunch of people in their athletic department, you know what I mean? So I think this time it'd be $500,000. But also wonder, like, why has the stadium rights – why has that not happened yet? This will be the second year, and there's no new stadium name, and the contract with Donald W. Reynolds Foundation or whatever ended. We're talking about millions of dollars. Why is there not a new stadium name? Why has there not been a GM hired for football to work under Remy Cofield or a player personnel guy? What's the holdup here? What's the holdup on those two things? We've got ticket prices going through the roof, and we can't name the stadium. Everybody has a stadium name. I don't understand what's going on. Questions to be asked. Hog Golf Pro says, we always seem to get destroyed by the quick passing game year in and year out. Yeah, there are teams that definitely, and it's always just like, well, they ran a really quick passing game. We couldn't get to the quarterback, you know. Year in and year out. Could you see us playing more press coverage? Yes. With the added size in the secondary? Yes. We give up enough big plays without our usual soft coverage. The risk seems worth trying to disrupt. Yeah. You know, on the 10th hole at Fayetteville Country Club, a lot of people pull out an iron or a hybrid or something like that off the tee. And the thing with that is, like, if you miss left or you miss right, if you miss right, you're going into the street. If you miss left, you're out of bounds because you're over by the practice area and there's out of bounds stake. But if you hit your driver and you go right, you go far enough down, you know, to where maybe you're still in bounds because it's a dog leg right. And if you go left, you go far enough that you go past the out of bounds stakes over to the next tee and you can stay in bounds. So why not pull out driver? I agree with this. That was an on-the-fly comparison. Yes, I agree with that. Be more aggressive. Make big plays. Like, they couldn't do it last year. They want to be a deny-the-ball team, as Travis Williams has said. They want to play man-to-man. They want to sprinkle in some zone, but they want to primarily play man-to-man. They weren't able to do that last year. They just weren't. They weren't able to do that last year because of the personnel they had. Injuries and stuff like that played a factor. This year, I've said before, the money went to the secondary. The money went to the offensive line. So if the offensive line and the secondary aren't incredibly better, that would be really disappointing. Having said that, you have to get a pass rush. You cannot expect your defensive backs to cover people for 5 seconds. Like, you're done. Nobody's covering anybody for that long. So you have to be able to get a pass rush, put pressure on the quarterback, make him uncomfortable, change his launch point, move him out of the pocket, all those types of things have to happen. But, yes, I do think that we could see more press coverage, more aggressive secondary, more zero coverage. Stifling 57 months, 41 months, 6,681 posts, 82 posts. Are we going to see the 3-3-5? Yes. We ran it very well last year. Tennessee and Mississippi State come to mind. We have the size, the hog position, third linebacker position, safety. So if we see a 3-3-5, when they do that, they generally use what they call a buck. And a buck is basically a defensive end. Brad Spence played it some last year. He was a linebacker, but Nico also played it. This year you're going to see Charlie Collins, Philip Lee, I think even Justice Boone, they've mentioned him. But those are basically just ends who are standing up. You know, it's a 3-3, but it's not. You know, they're also run a 4-3, which they call the outside linebacker there, the penny. That would be called their penny package, I guess. But it's a 4-3, so they'll have a Sam linebacker and will use a true linebacker, Trent Whalen, Bradley Shaw, one of those guys. I think they like Trent Whalen in that role. But, you know, basically he's, you know, it's like a nickel. The penny's like a nickel, except for he's got, you know, more run type of responsibilities. And then you have your 4-2-5, which is what they, you know, kind of base everything off of. And, you know, you've got your, you know, Jordan Young as your hog there. We're also going to we're going to see them do some 3-2-6. I've seen that also. And that's just, you know, 3 high safeties. You'll have like Larry Worth as the middle safety, and then you'll have a boundary and a field. But Larry Worth's also going to move around a lot. You'll see him at money linebacker some even, you know, which is kind of the outside guy. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of different types of groupings there. Who will be the first team to make us pay for lack of defensive depth, says Story of the Year, 80 months, 214 posts. Reports out of Kansas that Ole Miss does not have an impressive O-line. I would say Notre Dame will be the first to expose the weakness. If Ole Miss doesn't have an impressive O-line, I think it's possible the deeper you get into the season. Now, Notre Dame obviously is going to have some big, strong offensive linemen, no question. So it could be Notre Dame, but I also think as you get into the season a little bit more, you get bumps and bruises, the depth issues start to show up. You could see that on the back end of the schedule more. West Hog 21 says, if KJ Jackson had to come into the game in a similar spot to what Malachi did against Tennessee, would you be more confident or less confident than Malachi? Similar. I mean, I like Malachi. I don't know that, like, and I was in the elevator coming down to the field when that drive happened, but I was right there next to Nico Iamaleava when he went out of bounds and the game ended. Everybody rushed the field. But going back and watching it, to me, like, Braylon Russell won that game. Like, I'm not saying that Malachi didn't do good things. Like, when he scored a touchdown, Tennessee let him score, you know. So I'm not just like thinking there's like these big shoes to fill exactly, you know. KJ's not as fast as Malachi, but he is taller, probably a similar type of arm. So it should be, I would expect similar type of results in that one. Hog Jackets 1 says, considering Love is RB1 this year, considering Love's RB1. Oh, you answering a question. Gotcha. Kiro Small Enthusiast, 2 months, 37 posts. Are you going to give a game-by-game prediction? I did, yeah. And is the fluffer going to be every Thursday again this season? So there was discussion of whether or not to rename. I can't do it. I can't rename the primer the fluffer. The primer is the paint that goes on before the paint. You know, it's the primer. Get you ready. The fluffer is a similar thing. I'm not going to explain it. Don't Google it at work. Okay. We're going to answer some more questions. We got a lot of them here. We'll answer some more questions. But first,
It's a fine barbecue, Joe.
My own secret recipe.
Where's Super Sid? I got him on the FaceTime.
Where you at, Sid?
Hey, I'm in Milwaukee at the Bucks game.
How are they playing?
They're pretty good. They just need to get healthy.
Speaking of playing, what's shaking in Bet Saracen?
Ooh, great offers, Pat. Like for new players to Bet Saracen, they'll get $125 to use for new bets.
Gotta love Bet Saracen.
It's time for the Bet Saracen wager wagon on HawgSports. So every week I'm going to pick a few games that I like that stand out to me, and then we're week 0, so we've got some games coming up this weekend. The first one that jumps out is the biggest game of the weekend, Kansas State versus Iowa State, 2 preseason ranked teams. Kansas State on Bet Saracen is -3. My pick is Kansas State in this one. I like Avery Johnson. Arkansas recruited him coming out of high school. He's a lot better than I actually thought he was going to be. Iowa State has the nation's top pass defense from last year, but I don't know that I trust the Iowa State offense. Obviously, there's a lot of unknowns in college football, so take some of these what they're worth. It's week 1, but I do like Kansas State. This one's in Dublin at -3. Next game is Kansas -12.5 against Fresno State. I like Fresno State. Kansas, though, does return Jalen Daniels again, which is amazing because Arkansas played them several years ago in the Liberty Bowl. But their pass defense was 104 nationally last year and got a lot of new transfers, unproven, but, just like everybody. Matt Entz is the new coach at Fresno State. He was an assistant at USC last year. He's got a capable quarterback in E.J. Warner, who was at Rice last year, put up solid numbers for Rice last year, hit the transfer portal, ended up at Fresno State. So I like Fresno State in this one. I like Fresno State +12.5. The next one is, I feel like this is a chance for Stanford to go visit Hawaii. But you got Hawaii -2 versus Stanford in Hawaii. It's one of the good things about being Hawaii. Everybody wants to go there to play. And their offense struggled last year, especially in the run game. They were second to last in the Mountain West. Stanford has a new coach in Frank Reich, and he has NFL experience. Obviously, he was an NFL head coach. He's, got the connection with what's his name? Quarterback, Indianapolis Colts. I can see his ugly face right now, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, I don't like that he hired Frank Reich as a interim coach because it makes me think of John L. Smith. Like, to me, if I'm a player, I'm thinking about who's my next coach going to be, and is it going to be at Stanford or is it going to be somewhere else? And I could be totally wrong on that, but he has the fact that he has the interim tag on him while they conduct a nationwide search for the coach. That makes me I kind of like Hawaii in this. I could see like the jet lag and all that kind of stuff, factoring in. I'm taking Hawaii at -2, believe it or not. I didn't think I would at first, and then I was, just following along, and I was like, oh yeah, he's got the interim tag. Next, I've got Nebraska -6 on Bet Saracen versus Cincinnati in Kansas City. I really like Matt Rule. In fact, he was a guy that I was like putting on coaching search hot boards. I like that he rebuilt, maybe just built Temple. Like Temple was good. Baylor in an era when everybody was saying they'll never recover from the sanctions, from the stigma, all that stuff that was attached to Baylor, and he took them to the next level. I mean, they were really good under him. And then he took his show to the NFL. Nebraska hired him. I think he's a really good coach, a lot better coach than they had a few years ago. They've got a strong defense, like the quarterback. Cincinnati kind of struggled against the better Big 12 teams last year, and I just see kind of an upward trajectory for the Cornhuskers. I've got Nebraska at -6.5. And then last fifth bet, I'll just put my money where my mouth is. I've got Arkansas at 6+ wins. That's +115 on Bet Saracen. That's what I did in my predictions. I picked them to go 6, even though I think 4-8 or 8-4. But I'm going to ride the Lightning a little bit there, and I'll go with Arkansas 6+ at +115. There's several different tiers you can go with there. So those are my thoughts. Take them or leave them. Don't come at me saying, Trey, you lost me money. Enjoy it. Enjoy. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to feel the sting of defeat to remind you you're alive. Remember that when you're gambling. Okay. More questions. Well, KJ Jackson started. So I wrote a depth chart. I did a full depth chart, my projection for game one. And in it, in the comments, I put KJ Jackson has better command of the offense, but this is this is Taylor Green's team. All I meant by that was, it was very poorly worded because I went back and read it. I was like, ooh. All I meant by that was KJ Jackson has a better command of the offense than he had last year, not a better command of the offense than KJ Jackson. So this is kind of beginning to be a running joke a little bit. But Hawks fans 479, 4,642 posts, 68 months says, wouldn't mind hearing some thoughts on moving Blackstock from OL to DL. Sorry, we did talk about that. I think, if he's the fourth defensive tackle, he's going to play a lot. He's not going to play on the offensive line. I do not care what they say about rotating offensive linemen, playing guys, all this stuff. Maybe a little bit here and there, but really not. Being the fourth defensive tackle, 20-plus snaps maybe, so it's an opportunity to contribute when, otherwise he was not going to. Whiskey Drunk says Trey Biddy officially predicts Hogs to go 10-2 and make the playoffs. You wonder why Whiskey Drunk hadn't been on. I called him. I was like, asked him. I texted him and then said, hey, you want to start coming back on the show again now that football season's going? And he's like, I just got too much crap going on. He had too many kids. He's got a couple of youngins. But the invite stands, Whiskey. Maybe for a big game, maybe you'll come on. Hog 2017, 64 months. 26,000 posts. So one injury to a backup defensive lineman and moving a backup O-line over changes from 8 to, he's reading somebody else, changes from 8-4 to 4-8. Yeah, he's just replying. Tuscalore, 59 months, 1,743 posts. If we were going to win one game, we shouldn't this year, who would it be against? Well, there are a lot of candidates. I mean, we've all talked Tennessee. I mean, you look at the predictions, we've all talked Tennessee, we've all talked LSU, Ole Miss. I don't think anybody said Notre Dame, but obviously Notre Dame is at home. Notre Dame lost to, Northern Illinois or something last year. They're not invincible. It's a 16-14 game or something. It can happen. Stuff can happen. They're going to play the game. I always say that, when people just predict doom and gloom, I'm like, Arkansas still is going to show up and play football. And things can happen in a football game that you don't expect sometimes. So I've got them beating Ole Miss in the scenario that I laid out. But I've got them losing to Memphis. I mean, that's just like the idea that Arkansas should beat somebody they're not supposed to beat, and they should lose to somebody they shouldn't lose to. We see that all the time. So that's kind of where I went with that. So I'll say Ole Miss. Let's see if we got any more. That's it. That's all the questions there. We've got a lot of comments, obviously. I'll check and see if we've got Andrew Luck. Yeah, that's who it is. Emmett Neal Sr., thank you. Trey, taking into account, this is from Stacey Manning, taking into account all the teams with new quarterbacks on our schedule, which of those teams do you feel best about us getting the win? Well, it kind of goes back to something I was saying earlier, Stacey. When I was watching in 2000 and hell, what year was that? 12? Was it 2012? Yeah. I was watching Texas A&M and Florida. Let me see if that was the first game that year. Let's see. All right. So, game 2. Okay, so game 1 was postponed. They were supposed to play Louisiana Tech that year on August 30th. It got postponed. I'm assuming maybe a hurricane, something like that. They ended up playing him on October 13th. So they played Florida to open that year. And I remember the first drive seeing Johnny Manziel, who I had no idea who he was, only that they had a new starting quarterback. And I just remember going, crap. This guy's a redshirt freshman. Like, I remember just thinking, crap. Like, this guy looks really good. Just the way he moved. It wasn't anything about his numbers or whether they scored on the drive or anything like that. It was the way he moved and handled that offense as a first-year college quarterback, first-year starter. So there will be teams like that that have quarterbacks that are exceptional. Just because you have a new quarterback doesn't mean he's not going to be exceptional. Teams win big with first-year quarterbacks all the time. But there is that unknown factor. You could have a guy who sucks. You could have chosen the wrong guy out of camp. That happens all the time, as I mentioned earlier. So it's hard to say, like, who are the teams that are most susceptible to losing to Arkansas because they have a new quarterback when we don't know anything about, like, we think we know, but you don't really know until it happens. He's responding. Yeah, Charlie Alvarez says, "What's up, T. Biddy? You think T. Will is stressed about the D-line depth?" I think that moving Blackstock helps that a lot. And, again, that also says a lot about the strength and depth on the offensive line. But I would be. I mean, Sam Pittman was clearly like, he was like, hell yeah. Hell yeah, I'm worried about it. Arkansas needed to say lucky on the defensive line, and the fact that they've already lost a guy is concerning. He will be back. I mean, you don't miss the whole season because of that type of injury. He'll be back. And, again, that's not an official word on that injury. It's what it is, though. All right. I appreciate everybody for hopping on. Thanks to Connor Goodson for giving his thoughts. Can't wait till he gets Ozarks Go down there, because you can tell how smooth and clean this is. This is all streaming with Ozarks Go. Appreciate them. Appreciate our friends over at Bet Saracen, of course, at Crane Automotive. Check out the people at Crane Automotive. Blakeman's Fine Jewelry, Walker Brothers. Got a great group. And I'll say this too, like, we're running local commercials now. In the past, we have done the same number of ad breaks. It's just been cutting away to YouTube ads. And so it's basically, the same thing. It's just we're able to control who advertises with us, people that we believe in, people we like, and we're certainly thankful to have all of our sponsors with us, and we're thankful to have all of you guys listening to the show. Couldn't do what we do without your support, and I just want you to know that does not go unnoticed by me. So really appreciate everybody for being with us at HawgSports. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, we'll be back with you guys on Monday for what? Arkansas at Alabama Game Week show. And then, of course, the primer on Thursday. It's almost here. It's been a long week. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.